Hello all. So today I am here with Dr. Anthony Balduzzi. So excited to see you and be here with you today. I haven't seen you in a long time. So brief bio, Dr. Balduzzi is a naturopathic physician and founder of FitFatherProject and FitMotherProject. And these are basically online health and fitness communities designed exclusively for busy moms and busy dads who want to lose weight, keep it off, and stay permanently healthy for their families. And little bragging rights. What is it now? Over like 35,000 people and dads in particular serve.
Over like 35,000 families in like 100 countries. It's really fun.
That's fantastic. And so beyond your doctorate degree, this modern day Superman I've heard you referred to holds dual degrees in nutrition and neuroscience and is also a national champion bodybuilder. AKA Mr. Results, which I love. Dr. Balduzzi is a high performance weight loss and muscle building expert. And you really channel like all of that, the health and fitness knowledge into your personal life and your career. So you're like the practice what you preach, but also professionally so driven, which I really, really admire.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you also are really no stranger to loss and suffering. You know, you have a journey of challenges and your story behind all of your work is so powerful. And it's a really strong example of like intentionally choosing opportunity over victimhood during any crisis. And really like you speak to creating your own circumstance. One thing also you had mentioned in some of your content, you believe that you're a doctor not really out of following a dream, but almost more out of a necessity. Like you stepped into this because this is what the world needed of you. This is what your contribution is. You're a man on a mission and your determination has allowed for you to be the best version of you. And really to inspire because of that, tens of thousands of mothers, of fathers that you're helping through all your programs. So you're really committed to your life, to your family, to your wife, to your clients, and aspire towards making healthy living. What I love that you say is the core of an individual's identity and helping them really realize that. So all of that's why I have you here today. I'm super excited to dive in.
I'm pumped up about me.
I love it.
That was an amazing intro. Thank you. I appreciate that so much.
Cool. Yeah. And so with all that said, can you give me like a brief kind of background on like what drew you into health and wellness, in particular the Fit for Fathers, Fit for Mothers project? What's your story?
Well, the story is that growing up, I watched my own family go through a lot of health challenges. My dad got very sick early on. You know, I saw him basically do everything he could to provide for our family, work himself to the bone, not take care of himself. And he got sick and he died from cancer at 42 years young. And I was 9 at the time. My little brother was 6, and it rocked our entire world. And during those times after dad passed, particularly those first 3 months, I mean, it was just intense grieving. My whole world was shaken up. And on my 10th birthday, my mom gifted me my dad's pair of old dumbbells. And I started exercising at night. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I did quickly learn that when I did my push-ups, my shoulder presses, my sit-ups, that I started to feel better. And I started to regain a sense of control. When everything else was spinning out around me, I knew that if I did my exercises at night, and in turn, if I started to eat a little bit better, I felt better. I wasn't as sad. And through that control, I started to kind of like, I would say, rebuild myself and start to heal through this physical medium. And that blossomed into a greater mission over the following 15, 20 years of helping other people like my dad in that midpoint of life where they're busy, where they're trying to do best for their families, but they may not be doing what they need to be doing to have the healthy foundation to give them the lasting power. I help them get their health back on track. So naturally, the Fit Father came out of, you know, the memory of my dad and knowing that there's so many other men like him struggling in that position, just not taking care of themselves because they're quote unquote too busy, or they just don't have the solutions to make this stuff sustainable. So we started helping men. And it went really well. And guys were incredibly receptive. And we had great results for so many families. So we built the Fit Mother Project on the back end because, you know, moms need this stuff just as much, if not more, than dads, juggling, you know, most times work and kids and oftentimes household stuff. So it's like, whoa, we are busy people these days. And so my philosophy is we need to be able to create simple and sustainable like systems when it comes to your nutrition, your sleep, your exercise to create this health. And we need to also do some rewiring in our brains and our psychology in terms of how we relate to our health maybe in
Mhm.
terms of our identity, so that it doesn't feel like we're being pulled in two different directions. Like our health is pulling us one way and we don't feel like we have the time because life is over here and there's this constant battle, and that's where the stress comes. So we help people integrate that in addition to producing results. So my story came from, personal stuff, but then, it reinforces, with the thing with health is it reinforces itself. When you start to
Mhm.
get on the path and you start to feel better and live healthier, and more life flows through you, it's addicting. You
Mhm.
want to come back to that good normal. It's become the foundation of all things that I say are beautiful and successful in life have come from the fact that I take care of myself. And I think that shines through with my energy and my work.
Mhm, mhm. Well, and with your background with, the medical degree in fitness and nutrition, so many of us that are like unfamiliar with that world, we focus on diets and workouts, but you speak to really that getting and staying healthy is so much more than that, right? It's not just like the protocol, the diet, the workout, that people really need to like discover those deep motivations that are
Oh yeah.
behind those. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I love how you talk about, I really want you to talk a little bit more about the health why power. I just think that's
Mhm.
such a cool concept. And that it can allow for health to like start to become addicting and almost like an automatic presence in your life that's just driving you. Can you tell me a little bit more about that
Totally.
concept?
Totally. Well, I mean, ultimately, we all can examine our own personal experience in this domain of health, that it's not a matter of knowledge or information gathering. I mean, you and I both
Mhm.
went through medical school, and there were a lot of our classmates, in school who knew a lot about health, but didn't necessarily like put what they practice into play, just because it's
Yeah.
like, it comes down to behaviors, is what I'm trying to say. It's
Mhm.
like this health is about how do we actually execute consistently on the things that are good for us. And when it comes down to behaviors, it comes down to our psychology, and I would say our heart too, this combination of why these things are foundational to us. So before, on our Fit Father, Fit Mother programs, anyone starts any kind of diet or workout program, we have them go through this mission statement discovery exercise that helps them find their why power, which is like the core reasons why health is foundational, for life, for
Mhm.
you specifically. So what we help them do is look at, okay, how are the ways we're currently taking care of this body affecting and showing up, positive or negatively,
Mhm.
in all domains of life? Your ability to look a certain way, sure. Your ability to be a parent, your ability to
Mhm.
earn money, your ability to feel spiritually connected. And when you start to have this like big, wide range of like looking at these different domains and seeing how your health's affecting all of those, it starts to give you some psychological leverage. Like, man, eating these chips is not just about the fact that I want to fit into these smaller jeans. Man, this
Yeah.
is affecting a lot of different areas of life. And then some people, like me, with certain stories, have very acute instances in life, very acute experiences, tangible ones that are like, man, that is the reason why I need to stay healthy. Some guys, it's like you go into the doctor's office and they're like, look, you're going to have a heart attack like your dad did in 15, 20 years if you don't get this taken care of. That could be a
Mhm.
source of why power too. But ultimately, I think was what you kind of brought up in the intro is it's not about the content of our lives. It's about the context that we put
Mhm.
around them. It's about how do we take our experiences. So right now, as we're recording this, COVID going around the world right now,
Mhm.
it's like this is something that none of us chose, but we can assign meaning around it, either
Mhm.
positive or negative. And from there, we can find why power. So this is why it's essential for everyone who wants to be sustainable over the long term with their health, to reflect and find those core reasons that are incredibly motivating for you. Someone else, they may not be motivating, but they're very personal. So it's like, that's why it's a personal health why power. So for me, I know, when I keep, insofar as it started off for my dad,
Mhm.
because that's absolutely essential, and that was so grained into my identity, coming up on this thing. And now I know that as a man who wants to share and impact as many people as I can with my message, that it is my utmost importance to keep this vessel, vibrating at a high frequency, so that I can have an impact on others. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of different facets, and your why power can change, but you got to have some leverage on it.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like here and now we all are recognizing, listeners are recognizing that it is a unique time. And even if we're stepping into the fact that it's an opportunity, people are putting together like workout plans or, diets, and to just have that added layer of um, context to allow for these shifts that people are putting into place, like continue and
Right.
transcend and, really, really affect the long-term life. I think that's the message that I want to convey, and that you convey successfully with all your clients. This is something you do with every father and mother that enter into your programs, right?
Yes, 100%. And what
Yeah.
I would say is, like, let's make that tangible, not just like oh, I heard that on the summit or this podcast
Yeah.
and that sounds like a good idea, but like literally do the journaling exercise. I would be happy to include our
I love
questions
it.
from our program for listeners, and then write your mission statement, what you're committed to in the next 30 days and what your why power is, and write it, print it out, stick it on your fridge, stick it on your bathroom mirror, see it multiple times per day. It needs to be a constant reminder, because the busyness of life, the stressors are going to kind of tug us out of this center point. So we need to keep basically booby trap our environment so that this why power really starts to sink in.
Yeah, yeah. And that will allow for the long term that we're all looking for. Because I really
Yes.
do, I think we can gain ground through all this. And those of us that are really are. So it's possible. And
Mhm.
that's what I appreciate sharing. So beyond the why power, any other traits that you recognize, like in the people you work with, again, tens of thousands of people, any traits specific that you recognize as kind of influential on resilience, allowing for more of that?
Yeah. So resilience is an amazing word. I think
Mhm.
when you first hear it, for me, it comes like the idea of like strength and lasting power and durability comes to mind,
Mhm.
like something that can just get constantly slammed on. But I think that's almost a mistake, because it
Mhm.
makes us think of something that is strong on its own. Whereas my understanding of resilience is that people that are successful over the long term, who can fall down and get back up and continue sticking the course, have healthy, positive environments that
Mhm.
make it conducive for them to be resilient. So I think the mistake is thinking that resilience is an individual trait that ignores the greater context. So the two environments that I see people have who are resilient and successful over the long term are resilient, I should say, we'll call them healthy environments, both internally and externally.
Mhm.
So externally, a little more tangible, those that have families who share the core value of health, families or friends, create an environment where it's easier to move in a particular direction. There's
Yeah.
like everyone's probably heard the quote at this point that you're the sum total of the five people you spend the most time
Mhm.
with. It's
Mhm.
because everything rubs off on us. That's is the beauty of being human. We take in
Mhm.
information and we amalgamate it into a kind of a personality, right? So insofar as we can create healthy external environments, so that means positive supported messages that are coming in, maybe a healthier home that's like set up for success, that it makes it
Mhm.
easy for us to be onto our routines,
Mhm.
the kind of information we're taking in. These are all kind of like our external things. And then internally is essential as well, because even if I put you in the best environment but you have a lot of like internal garbage, which is
Mhm.
essentially after we've taken in a lot of this external information, it's what our mind essentially does to this inside, where it creates thoughts, ideas, judgments, and some can be very positive and productive, and some can be negative and destructive. So this is why we need to work on both ends of the spectrum. And I think people that are most resilient have those two things. Are they perfect? Absolutely
Mhm.
not, because a lot of times we can't control the external, and a lot of
Yeah.
times it takes a lot of work to undo some bad internal self-talk. But if we're working on both of these angles at the same time and both of these things are strong, resilience is what naturally exists in the middle of those things. Because
Nice.
humans are resilient by our nature. We are
Yeah.
here. We are the byproduct of a human species that has overcome challenges. So I like looking at this, especially with the COVID summit. Like 8% of our genome is viral DNA. Do you
Mhm.
think this is the first time that we've gone through something like this as a species? Absolutely not. And the point of this is saying this: we are naturally resilient, and I believe it's a byproduct of having a good, connected, healthy external environment. So audit that. Where are the improvements there? And on the internal side of things, I think there's a lot that can be done with having more positive self-talk, with affirmations, with meditation and prayer, just to help quiet a mind that might be overactive and self-judgmental and self-critical. But those
Mhm.
two things lead to resilience naturally.
Nice. And this is obviously something that you've been working towards for a long period of time. This isn't something we just, see overnight. I like how you say working on, resilience. It's the internal, the external, because it's a constant practice. It's constant effort. Never have I felt like, oh yeah, I've centered and I'm in there, that's achieved. It's a
Yeah.
process. And, every day there can be ups and downs. So be kind to ourselves along the journey, but just know that, the for refinement or fine tuning will continue. And it just takes time.
Let me share another thing with that, because it's really beautiful. Like I told you before this, that I've gotten more into studying yoga in this, and I think even just the way how our experience of life is set up, with the fact that we have a day and then a sleep,
Mm,
is baked in for our success. You know, we get up every single day, and a lot of the yogis call sleep like it's like the mini death. It's like
mm,
this thing where we have, and it's a beautiful kind of concept. It's like we have this waking active time, and then we have this mini death at night, and then we get a fresh start in the morning. So the beautiful thing is, it's we have the chance every single day to wake
mm,
up and commit to being a little bit better,
mm.
not to being perfect. And it also means forgiveness is a huge quality of resilience too. And just being like, okay, that was not great yesterday. This is a fresh new start. Like, I'm recommitting, I'm recreating, like, I'm back on this, like, let's go. And so every day, kind of baked into the nature of our light dark cycle, we have the opportunity to commit and refresh and to get back on the track. And then I think you can even, that's kind of a fractal concept. It can even go down to every hour, to every
Mhm.
minute, to every present moment. You have the opportunity to do that as well. So I'm not gonna say it's going to be easy, but every day, compound interest, we keep on going.
Yeah. Well, in some of these concepts, it just tells someone that they are in control of creating, that which is their day. That's foreign. So I'm just to start plugging into that and knowing that you can control it versus react to it, and then just what to put into practice to be able to do that.
Hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to talk like the mind and the internal environment. I know you have lots of things. I think
No,
this
go. I love it.
topic is just so important.
Yeah.
Is especially for a lot of us now um, who are experiencing suffering, which is an internal condition. Pain is
Mhm.
external. Pain is like something comes in, we touch a hot stove. Suffering is what happens in the meaning we ascribe to a quote unquote painful situation. And that's
Mhm.
what a lot of us are experiencing now. It's like, my business went down. Like, that is a factual statement. The suffering that happens from that is the experience that we have internally.
Mhm.
And these thoughts that come up, they are not us. We know the thoughts come by, and I have some crazy thoughts. Those are obviously not me, but they're observable. Those thoughts come from soil, the soil of our minds.
Mhm.
And if we have healthy soil, there are healthy, loving thoughts. If we have crappy soil, we have things that come up that we would probably not want to come up. So this is why I believe how we start our day
Mhm.
is essential, because it's our chance to kind of like, if the thoughts that come up today are going to be a byproduct of the soil, then when I wake up in the morning, let's get some fresh, good dirt on there, just to give me a positive fighting chance, to have
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
really good day. And it only takes 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes of whatever practice is going to help you personally with where you're at, like um, fill you up with some good stuff. So when you go out into the day, you're not going to be immediately reactive to some
Yeah.
of the stressors. And we do that every single day. And over time, that good soil, can totally rechange this whole, all the stuff that's in here.
Yeah, because to will that all, that's just setting yourself up for failure. That's
Yeah,
maybe a day or two, but it is a challenge for sure.
totally.
Yeah, yeah. So what's your morning? What are your practices?
Well, I think one of the easiest ways for most humans to get to, we'll call this like this centered point, is to
Hmm.
spend a little time outside,
Hmm.
because it is baked into our very nature that we kind of like co-evolved with this planet, and like nature is very centering for a lot of people. So I get outside, I get some sunshine in my eyes and on my body.
Hmm.
I take some deep breaths of some nice, clean outside air.
Hmm.
And I have a meditation practice, and I take a morning walk. It's like a meditative
Nice.
walk with my dog in silence, focusing on all the footsteps. And I do meditate and do a little bit of reading in the morning. So it
Nice.
varies. It's not like necessarily like it's every the routine the same time. Sometimes there's earlier meetings and other things.
Hmm.
But I think outside prayer, meditation, and moving your body is important, because like the mind and the breath and the body are inextricably linked. We know that we can make ourselves feel anxious by like holding our breath or breathing
Hmm.
shallow. We know we can make ourselves feel relaxed by breathing more deeply. And this affects our autonomic nervous system tremendously through breath. And this, in the first thing in the morning, after we've been kind of stagnant in our beds for a long sleep, we need to get the body moving. We need circulation. We need lymph fluid moving. So the simple act of going outside, breathing deep, and moving your body is going to create
Hmm.
like fertile soil for a good healthy, happy mind. And you couple that with some kind of prayer, affirmation, or just reading something that is lifting you up, man,
Mhm.
you're like, that's a pretty quick practice that I think gives you incredible dividends. And if I think we were honest with ourselves, most of us, we look at our days and we're like, okay, do I have at least, maybe an hour, 2 hours, maybe for some 3, 4, 5 hours of work that is like a stuff that's not productive? It could just be if you
Mm.
check your phone for 15 minutes, 5 times a day, there's your morning routine times three, right? We
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
time that we can earn back if we're honest with ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. So morning is morning basically like your, from a practice standpoint, the biggest focal point because that then allows for the day. Or are there anything else like
Two
throughout the day?
times, two
Okay.
times, and I
Okay.
think that they are these transition points of our divisions of consciousness.
Mhm.
Because it is the morning time, because we're transitioning into this waking state of consciousness. It's essential to add the good things in for the mind, the soil, as we
Yeah.
talked about. But on the tail end, I think the evening routine is important too, because this is a time where we're winding down from the state of waking consciousness into the state of dreaming and deep sleep, which is
Mhm.
also us. It's just another division of our experience of ourselves. And insofar as what essentially sleep ends up being is when the mind is no longer receiving the the external sensory perceptions of like the world as we're interacting with it during the waking hours. The things that we dream about and the things that come up are the things that are bubbling up from
Mhm.
that soil. It's the unconscious mind presenting our conscious awareness with stuff that we're ruminating over. So you saw a bunch of yellow taxis, there's the yellow taxi in your dream. Or you're afraid of a particular thing, that thing happens to recur. Or you really desire something to happen and you dream about that thing. It's
Yeah.
the mind, it's the mind essentially rehashing and doing that stuff over in the dream world. And it's a
Mhm.
part of our experience of being alive. Now,
Mhm.
what if we can spend a few minutes before bed
Mhm.
creating soil or cleaning things out or finding whatever that presence point is? And that could be reading, it could be prayer, it could be breathing, but setting again good soil and intention so that that sleep time is restorative. Because we know if when we slept well, when we were peaceful, when we wake up, we're ready to tackle the day. If we've had a nightmare, if we've been agitated, and if it was like a really intense, not great, like overactive sleep, we wake up and we're like, man, I'm already stressed, like what the heck.
Mhm. Yeah.
So like, I think there's like very high leverage points, like even 15, 20 minutes on both ends of the morning and the night. And that's why I think these morning routines are important, not just because it's like most productive people do these things. It's because like, this is kind of just how the mind and consciousness work.
Yeah. Well, and understanding the background because of those that I'm working with currently, that one of the biggest concerns is anxiety and insomnia.
Mhm.
And just understanding what's behind that. And yes, removing social media, but setting yourself up to have that quality restoration at night and process what you need to then wake and prepare yourself for a productive day. That's huge. So I think that can allow for people to just really grasp some more mental and emotional stability and build from that instead of being in this fearful chaotic state. So
So here's what I'll share. And this is something that's helped me tremendously. I've been
mhm,
meditating. For me, my meditation practice, I use the word meditation twice a day.
mhm,
And before bed is something that has been new that I've implemented over the past few months. And it's now become very easy because what I do is I have a little like straight back chair, like the crappiest little chair, but it's straight back. It's not comfortable. It's just only pretty much for meditation. It's in the corner of our bedroom. And before I actually go to sleep, I just sit in that chair for in the dark. My wife is oftentimes already asleep for 5, 10 minutes. I just sit
mhm,
there, I breathe, and I have just a simple mindfulness meditation practice. And it's really good to have some kind of visual cue in your environment
mhm.
that helps you. So I see chair and I know chair happens before bed happens. And like, it's very easy to stay on track with that versus like habits that can be a little more abstract or harder to stay consistent with, especially if you're very tired at night. So it's like,
Yeah.
let's say you're like, you need to go stretch for 10 minutes, get into a meditation posture, light a candle, find your favorite book. Like there's a lot of steps that go into that when
Mhm.
you're in a depleted willpower state. So if you want to make these practices something in your life, how do you booby trap your environment to make it something that's very like simple and automatic for you to do?
Yeah, I've heard that if you want to learn the guitar, put it in the middle of your living room, or if you want to, start
Right.
running. put your tennis shoes right in,
It's
in the middle
true.
of your room. So you have to, when you're shifting habits, it is a challenging, a challenging thing to initiate. So I like the booby trapping. That's a good.
Yeah, and remember too, I think this is a very beautiful analogy of like how the mind works from a guy named Jonathan Haidt, who has the idea of like the elephant and the rider. Like the
Mhm.
elephant is this powerful animal, and the rider's this tiny man on top of it, and he's trying to direct this elephant. The rider can see higher and has an idea of where things want to go, but ultimately he's got to move this elephant. The
Mhm.
elephant is like our unconscious mind, very strong, very powerful, needs essentially direction. And if it doesn't want to go in a particular way, like ultimately there needs to be a cooperation or nothing's going to get done. And we have this rider on top, someone who does not have necessarily the power to move, but has the direction and kind of needs to work with the elephant to move forward. We
Mhm.
think of ourselves as just our riders because that's what's in conscious awareness. It's called
Mhm.
unconscious in the subconscious for a reason, because it's not something that's immediately accessible and something that we identify as, but it is still us. All these latent desires and things are us. These, like, this is why hypnosis and stuff like this works. It's like reprogramming some of our subconscious scripts. So my point of being is like booby trapping the environment is working on your subconscious. When you see that guitar 15 times per day, like there is a subconscious thought or recognition. It's like, oh yeah, I said I want to do this. Like we should do this. Guitar, 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 guitar. And what do you think is going to happen? It's going to be a lot more likely you pick up the guitar. And vice versa. The same thing works with negative stuff. That's why the social media fasts and stuff like that you're um, sounds like you're implementing with some of your insomnia
Yeah.
anxiety clients, like are kind of essential, because it's not
Mhm.
just the conscious mind that's getting affected by this.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I feel like in doing that, the booby trapping, you're essentially like working on kind of that identity piece, right? Like you're starting to
Yes.
identify as the guitar player or the meditator, that you're like assuming that role more so. And that can make, that can echo into so many areas of life.
I want to talk about identity because I think it's really important right now in the context of everything that's going on, because I
Yeah.
think this is a time for all of us to evaluate the things we
Mhm.
identify with. I In my bio, you mentioned I used to do some bodybuilding, and I did, and I
Mhm.
was very identified with that, and it was helpful. And then during medical school, I had a terrible accident, broke my leg, ski crash, um, really bad, and uh, it kind of wrecked my body. Broken arm, broken leg for a long time, and at that time, it really challenged my identity of physically strong, fit young man.
Mhm.
That was immediately taken away. And I think a lot
Mhm.
of people are in a very similar situation now. They were successful business owner, they were employed, they were XYZ.
Mhm.
And when our identities get challenged, it can be very painful. And it also could be a chance for us to shed old identities and expand into more flexible ones. I think the most
Mhm.
dangerous identities are the ones that are so fixed and rigid that they're like a ceramic pot that if it gets knocked over, it
Mhm.
shatters. The best identities are ones that are resilient in
Mhm.
terms of they have structure to them, but at the same time, they can sway with
Mhm.
like a bamboo. It's strong, but it can still sway with the earthquake or with the wind. It has some bit of fluidity to it. And I think that's important. And it's a chance for us to identify if we are experiencing pain on an identity level, where can we expand our identity into something that's more congruent with exactly what is right now?
Yeah.
Um, is definitely a very powerful reflection question.
Yeah, and so many of us, we have like the most incredibly unique opportunity to like rewrite what is normal for us,
Mhm.
and to essentially just like recreate whatever we want our lives to be, and that shed what we don't. So it's just you know something that likely won't happen again for a very long time, but it's a very, very
Right,
unique time. Yeah, and so
right.
to
There's
leverage
big
that and
shakeup.
gain ground now. Yeah, yeah,
You're
definitely.
spot on.
And I want one quote that you had mentioned that I thought, because everyone speaks to like pain is opportunity, as you're saying, but the quote that I saw was pain is opportunity to grow, to stretch, to remodel, to transcend. I thought that was really beautifully said, and I think that was around your the accident time. But I
And I think it is. So it's like, and it's baked into the very fabric of our DNA. Like
mhm,
pain is feedback.
Mhm.
Like, as doctors, we know this. When there is pain somewhere, it is a created situation through the nervous system and the body saying, hey, something's up right here. And so if we extrapolate that concept out of like the 3D physical and into like our like understanding of our life, pain is feedback of, in this instance, our identity organism.
Mhm.
And we get to choose what we want to do with that. I think the first thing is to observe it
Mhm.
in a relatively non-attached way, um, because that's where pain ends up turning into suffering. At least I can speak with my broken leg. Is the pain is way worse when you believe that you are identified intensely with that pain. So
Mhm.
ultimately, we're just having experiences, whether positive or negative. We're having experiences. So observing those things first off, and then making choices in a non-reactive way to move forward, and then getting new data points. So it's like more pain, less pain, and we can guide forward through there. But this minute of pause and observation is exactly what we all need right now.
Yeah, pause and observation and knowing that there's lesson in that and search for that instead of sitting with the fear, just really knowing you can learn and grow. They just having
Mhm.
that shift and initial response to it is huge. It makes a huge difference. Um,
Mhm.
are there any different messages that you're kind of conveying or speaking to your audience as far as just the current time, or are you just same because you're I know you've been preparing yourself and preparing the people you work with for times of crisis, comparable to this. It's just being resilient. But anything else that you're communicating that's different?
Yeah, I think that like ultimately our sense, for most people, our sense of anxiety comes from our perception of control. So I
Mhm.
think there's two things that we can do right now. One, and this is probably the more moderate approach, is to take an audit right now in our lives of the things we can and we cannot control. And it's like, would be good to actually potentially list these things like in a very
Mhm.
concrete way. And then the domains that we feel like we can control, which at this point maybe every single day, if we're stuck at home on furlough or quarantine or just because XYZ reason, we can control something like how we move our body,
Mhm.
like what we do with our physical body during the time. Maybe one thing. Probably can control our breath. Probably can't control the economy or policies that XYZ administration implements. And so, if we start to delineate those things and we focus our energy on controlling the controllable or investing in the controllable
Mhm.
and surrendering to the uncontrollable, we can eliminate massive amounts of anxiety very quickly. Because ultimately, what lights us up as beings is this expansion, this growth. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily like the domain. I'm sure, as insofar as you love health and medicine, there are probably a lot of other professions and things you could get massively passionate about in
Mhm.
time, because the process of learning, growing, and serving others, these are like foundational things that transcend content silos.
Mhm.
So I guess my point of saying that is a lot of points in there, but I guess like my
Yeah,
point
a
of
lot
really
of
saying
great
that,
points.
my
Yeah.
point of saying that is like is focus on the controllable,
Yeah.
surrender into the non-controllable. Um, and number two might be another even deeper level of surrender, to be like, wow, you know, in an instant, this entire
Mhm.
social fabric got very shaken up, and you can almost see it as this like grand cosmic drama that is
Mhm.
playing out, that we're all actors and parts of, and we want to do, but a lot of it can be just surrendering into the present moment and kind of just riding this wave, always still making the right choices and moving ourselves forward. But this could be a beautiful moment of grand surrender to like the unfolding of life. Like, you hit a tree skiing, your dad dies, COVID happens, you lose your job, your kid gets sick. Like, at a certain point, I think a good antidote to this stuff is just a deep breath, sometimes a laugh,
Mhm.
because these things are, they can be tragedy. I think laughter is also just a
Yeah.
laughter, and the surrender is an antidote to this stuff. And when we're so attached to controlling the outcome, we create suffering.
Yeah. And I think the epicness of what is happening now is that, like you were saying, everyone, we all go through crises. That's how we grow and develop into the beings that we are. And the epicness of now is we're all experiencing the same, tragedy as one, like together. So it just
Yeah.
feels so larger than life. But I really do think that there's beauty in that, and surrender is such a great word. It's a fearful thing, but to know that it will allow for you to just ride the wave and have faith that good will come, and put those small practices into place to start to take steps forward that will be leaps later on, for sure.
Yeah, and you've got one last thing I would love to share. And I think that it
Yeah.
comes down to one of the easiest ways to get out of this suffering state. When the suffering state comes from this root of often of selfishness, meaning like we're clinging on to these base instincts that we have of survival, which I'm not denying those are important. But the way to transcend those quickly is to be of service.
Hmm.
And when that expands us immediately out of this like constricting energy that is like, oh my God, everything's bad, where service is a little more expansion. And this doesn't have to be some grand, get out onto the streets and do crazy stuff. This is in our families, in
Hmm.
our friend groups right now. Like, I believe that our families and our friend groups and this stuff that we have influence over, these little pockets, because we all have little pockets right now that we're
Hmm.
kind of all interacting with. These are our temples, our
Hmm.
opportunity to serve, and our practice ground, our dojo as well for being more loving, etc. And
Hmm.
if we can just exert positive influence on these little pockets, and imagine if everyone did that simultaneously
Yeah.
in one day, like this place would change immediately.
Hmm. Hmm.
Everything, like COVID might not change. It might be on this trajectory, but everything around this would change. Like
Yeah.
the feeling of it, the shared collective consciousness of it, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. Well, and we need the leaders. We need like the pillars of light to step up and influence, our, even if they feel small, communities, because that will then echo
Yes.
into the common, yeah, global community.
Yeah, we
So
don't even understand the ripple effect. Like, and
yeah.
also like the kids that are going through this right now.
Yes. Yeah.
This is shaping them too. And this is giving them a chance to like set their initial foundation of soil. Like there's so much opportunity, and to parent and to lead our families too. I agree with that.
Yeah, definitely. And we, as a parent, we model every day how to respond to the world. And so that's so, so critical to be our calm, collected selves, and show that this world is not the hostile, fearful place, but an opportunity and a kind, place where we can just grow into. Yeah. Being a parent, it's a huge message right now, which is a challenge and a blessing for sure. So, oh my goodness, you shared so many messages, man. This has been fantastic. But
Good.
be any like other unique message that you have to drop on us or share with the world? Any other small
I, I
tidbits
I
you've
literally
got?
think we covered it, and
I
I say
love
that
it.
because I think we covered so many things, and I think I'd
So,
honestly repeat myself.
hey, that's that. I just wanted to make sure I didn't leave anything unturned, because you have shared so much fantastic stuff. Beyond that, anything in particular you want to share with our audience, be it like for their participation, anything you want
Yeah,
them to be
yeah.
aware of?
I think I'll send you a couple links to a couple things that I'd love to share.
Cool.
That mission statement guide for fit fathers and fit mothers,
Awesome.
because I think that'd be a really actionable way to discover that why power that we discussed.
Yeah.
And a free at-home workout kind of thing too, because if you are going
Sweet.
to take action on something, it's the easy way to move your body.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much. This was
You're welcome.
awesome. It
It
was
really
really,
was.
really, it was
It
great
really
for
was.
me and great for everyone listening. So I really appreciate it, and keep doing what you're doing. I'm curious, anything different that you're doing from like a professional standpoint of like, have you had any landscape shift, or you just kind of proceeding as you have been?
Well, like much like you, we work online
Yeah.
with people.
Yeah.
Um, I think the we are responding to people's inquiries and challenges around the logistics of some of these health things, like at home,
Yeah.
like how to get things done with very minimal equipment, or like the kinds of foods and nutrition plans, and also sharing information that we feel is great around the virus itself and some of the trajectories of these things to help people like assuage some of their fears and just like get a grasp on it. So I'd say like some shift in our like content production and focus. But I think we've done such a nice job over the past couple of years of developing a great community that
Yeah.
it's really just giving people like a space. Like it's funny. We're like a online fitness community, I guess you could say, health and fitness, that now is like really so much more about like
Yeah.
families and connection than anything
Yeah.
else. And it's like we're grateful to be a pocket for connection for all these people around the world supporting each other inside of our communities. And we just like happen to be hanging out there, be like, oh, hey guys, remember us? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime I go to your website, I get lost. Like I'm just, reading, and I get so inspired with just all the content you have. So you've absolutely built a community, and I think that's the power of what you do. Because yeah, you have all the degrees and the knowledge, but how you've applied it and how you really invest in people's lives is huge. So
thank you.
yeah, highly encourage checking it out. All right. Well, thank you, sir, for very, very much for being here today.
Have a great day.
You too.